My son's teacher called him a liar for saying his dad works at NASA. What happened at Parents' Night made her apologize to the entire class and changed our school forever. I, 34M, never thought I'd be writing one of these posts, but here I am, still processing what happened last night at my son's school. It's been a wild 24 hours, and I need to get this off my chest. My 8-year-old son has always been proud of what I do. He's at that age where he thinks space is the coolest thing ever, and having a dad who works at NASA is basically like having a superhero in the family to him. I'm not an astronaut or anything glamorous. I'm an aerospace engineer who works on propulsion systems for unmanned missions. Important work, but not exactly the stuff of action movies. Last week, my son came home from school looking deflated. When I asked what was wrong, he mumbled that his teacher had called him a liar in front of the whole class. Apparently, during their "What do your parents do?" discussion, he proudly announced that his dad works at NASA, designing rockets. His teacher apparently laughed and told him to stop making things up and that we all need to be honest about our families. I was furious. My blood was boiling, but I tried to stay calm for my son's sake. I asked if he wanted me to talk to his teacher, but he just shook his head and said, "It's okay, Dad. She probably just doesn't believe kids like me can have dads who do cool stuff." That broke my heart. Kids like him. We live in a predominantly lower-income neighborhood, and my son attends the local public school. We could afford private school, but my wife and I believe in supporting public education. Plus, it's close to home, and most of his friends go there. I emailed his teacher that evening, introducing myself and politely mentioning that I did, in fact, work at NASA, and that my son was telling the truth. I didn't receive a response, but Parents' Night was coming up in a few days, so I figured we could clear things up then. Fast forward to last night. My wife couldn't make it due to a work commitment, so I went alone. I dressed casually, jeans and a button-down shirt, nothing that screamed NASA engineer. When I reached my son's classroom, the teacher was speaking with another parent, so I waited my turn, looking at the science projects displayed on the wall. When she finally called me over, she had this practiced smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So your son's father? I'm his teacher. Nice to meet you." "Likewise. I've been looking forward to discussing how he's doing in class." She launched into her spiel about how my son was a creative child with an active imagination, but needed to work on separating fact from fiction. She mentioned the NASA incident as an example of his tendency to exaggerate. I smiled and said, "Actually, that wasn't an exaggeration. I do work at NASA. I'm an aerospace engineer at the Propulsion Systems Division." Her face froze. "Oh, well, that's unexpected." "Why is it unexpected?" I asked, keeping my tone light but direct. She stammered something about how most parents in this district work in more local industries, and that it seemed unlikely that a NASA engineer would live in our neighborhood or send their child to this school. I pulled out my NASA ID badge that I always keep in my wallet. "I assure you, we exist, and we value public education." The look on her face was priceless, a mix of embarrassment and disbelief. But what happened next really got to me. "Well," she said, lowering her voice, "you have to understand that children from certain backgrounds often make up stories about their parents having prestigious jobs. It's a coping mechanism." My jaw nearly hit the floor. "Certain backgrounds? You know what I mean," she said with a knowing look that made my skin crawl. I took a deep breath. "No, I don't think I do. Could you clarify what background you think my son comes from that would make him lie about his father's profession?" She backpedaled quickly, realizing she'd stepped in it. "I just meant that children sometimes embellish to fit in." My son wasn't embellishing. He was sharing something he's genuinely proud of, and you called him a liar in front of his peers. Do you understand how damaging that could be? The conversation deteriorated from there. She became defensive, claiming she never called him a liar outright, though my son's account was backed up by his friend's parents, who texted me during the meeting after their kid told them what happened. I ended the meeting by requesting that she apologize to my son in front of the class, the same audience that witnessed her dismissing him. She reluctantly agreed, but seemed more concerned about saving face than acknowledging the harm done. As I was leaving, another parent who had overheard part of our conversation approached me. They shared that their daughter, who wants to be a scientist, had also been discouraged by this teacher, who told her that science is very difficult for girls and suggested she consider more suitable options. I was stunned. This wasn't just about my son anymore. Update 1. This morning, I emailed the principal detailing both incidents, my son's and the girl who was discouraged from pursuing science. I was careful to stick to facts and direct quotes, avoiding emotional language. I requested a meeting and suggested that the school might benefit from some NASA outreach programs we offer to local schools. The principal responded within hours, apologizing profusely and scheduling a meeting for tomorrow. They also mentioned that this wasn't the first complaint about this teacher's outdated perspectives. I spoke with my son and explained that his teacher made a mistake, and that sometimes adults are wrong too. I told him I was proud of him for telling the truth, and that he should never feel ashamed of who he is or what his parents do. He seemed relieved, but asked a question that stuck with me. "Dad, why didn't she believe me? Is it because of where we live?" I didn't have a good answer for him. How do you explain prejudice and classism to an 8-year-old? Update 2. The meeting with the principal went better than expected. They took the situation seriously and had already spoken to the teacher, who apparently admitted to misjudging the situation. The principal shared that they've been trying to address certain biases among some staff members who've been at the school for decades. The teacher has agreed to apologize to my son tomorrow and to the young girl who was discouraged from pursuing science. Additionally, the principal loved the idea of NASA outreach and asked if I'd be willing to give a presentation to the school about working in STEM fields. I agreed immediately. If this situation can turn into an opportunity to inspire kids who might not otherwise see STEM careers as accessible to them, then something good can come from it. My wife suggested we take it a step further and organize a field trip to the NASA facility for my son's class. I'm looking into the possibilities now. Update 3. It's been a week since everything went down, and I wanted to provide a final update. The teacher apologized to my son in front of the class, though it felt a bit forced. Still, my son came home beaming that day, saying several classmates thought it was so cool that his dad really does work at NASA. Sometimes kids are better at moving past these things than adults. I gave my presentation yesterday to the 3rd and 4th grade classes. I brought some models, videos of rocket tests, and sample materials used in spacecraft. The kids were absolutely enthralled, asking brilliant questions that sometimes stumped even me. Their enthusiasm was infectious. The most rewarding moment came when the girl who had been discouraged from pursuing science came up to me afterward. She showed me her notebook filled with drawings of rockets and space stations, and asked me what subjects she should focus on if she wants to work at NASA someday. I nearly teared up giving her advice. As for the teacher, I've heard through the grapevine that she's been required to attend diversity and inclusion training. The principal mentioned they're reviewing how teachers discuss career possibilities with students to ensure they're not limiting horizons based on outdated biases. My son now proudly wears his NASA t-shirt to school without fear of being disbelieved. He told me yesterday, "Dad, I think my teacher just didn't know that people like us can do important jobs too." Out of the mouths of babes. I'm still processing my feelings about this whole situation. On one hand, I'm angry that my son had to experience that kind of prejudice. On the other hand, I'm grateful that it opened the door to potentially inspire a classroom full of kids who might not have otherwise seen STEM careers as possibilities for themselves. If there's one thing I've learned from this experience, it's that representation matters. These kids need to see people from all backgrounds succeeding in fields like science and engineering. Maybe this incident was the wake-up call this school needed. And to any parents reading this who might face similar situations, stand up for your kids. They're watching how you respond when they're wronged, and they're learning from your example. Sometimes being a good parent means having uncomfortable conversations with the adults who influence your children's lives. As for us, we're looking forward to hosting my son's class at NASA next month. I can't wait to see their faces when they see what we're building for the next mission to Mars. Who knows, maybe one of them will be designing the rockets that take humans there someday.